So in the second subtask of the CSV Data Analyzer project, so we'll be doing the first function, that is displaying the data. So let's look at the tasks for this subtask. We have to check whether or not the CSV file is empty, that is there is no data available, and then we're going to give out an error message and we're going to exit the function. And then in case there is data, that is it's not empty, then we're going to display the dataset information, and then we're going to format the data and we're going to display it in a way which the user can understand. So you can see the expected output for this particular subtask over here. So let's look at the code. First we're going to import the CSV module from Python, and then we have a slight change in the load CSV function. Basically what we are going to do is we're not going to give the new line or the UTF encoding, but we're going to open the file in read-only mode, and as usual we're going to give the reader as csv.dictReader file, and then we're going to initialize an empty list, and we're going to iterate through every row in reader, and then we're going to append that to this particular list. After that is done, we're going to print out CSV file loaded successfully, and then we're going to return the list of dictionaries, or else if there is an error, as usual we're going to print out an error message. Now let's look at the function for this particular subtask, that is display info. So we're going to take in the list of dictionaries as an input. So in case there is no data available, we're going to run the simple if condition. We're going to print out no data available. So if the data actually exists, we're going to move on further, and then we're going to print out information. So in this particular line, F stands for format. So let me just explain what it basically does. So over here we have len of data, which is basically going to give the length of the list, that is the number of rows. So let's say if I hadn't given F or the flower brackets, then what it would do is it would print out len data, that is it would actually print out the letters len and brackets and data. But what we want is we want to print out the total number of rows. That's why we want to print out the actual value of len data. Hence you're going to give F over here and put this in flower brackets to tell Python to print the actual value of this rather than the actual letters given over here. So over here we're going to print out the columns. Now you might be wondering, why have we given this asterisk over here? So the asterisk stands for unpacking operator. So this is what would have been printed out if I hadn't given the asterisk over here. So you can see that this columns it's not exactly clean, it's a singular object, but I want each column to be separate. That is, I want name to be separate object, I want age to be a separate object, I want city to be a separate object, but over here all three are grouped together. So what the asterisk over here basically does, it is basically an unpacking operator. That is, it's going to make sure that it's going to print out like this. So you can see each individual column is separate objects. That is, they are not together forming a single object, but they are separate objects on their own. Therefore, I can print it out individually or access it. So this headers is basically the list of columns. So what does data 0 of keys over here do? Data 0 of keys, basically data 0 means the first dictionary in the list, and dot keys basically gives out the keys of that particular dictionary. That is, it only gives out the keys. It does not give out the value for that particular keys. So in this case the keys will be columns, because as I showed previously, in the dictionary the keys will be columns. So if I just ask the keys, it's going to give us the name of columns. So thereby I can separate the columns from the rows. So over here I have the list of columns over here, and then now over here I'm going to print data, and then I'm going to print out the actual data. So for X in headers, that is for each value in the headers list, that is the list of columns, for each value in the list of columns, I'm first going to print them out, and what I'm going to do is for each column I'm going to print out two empty spaces, that is two spaces over here, so that it looks clean and legible. So the reason why I've given end empty quotes over here is because, so at the end of everything Python prints, there's going to be a new line character or a \n, that is this. So what is \n? \n basically tells Python to go to the next line. So in case I didn't give this particular sentence over here, that is end equal to empty quotes, what would happen is it would print out name, and then it would go to the next line, and then it would print out age. But we do not want that. We want all to be printed in the same line. That is, I want it like this. So therefore we are going to give this particular sentence over here to make sure that it's going to get printed in the same line, thereby avoiding printing the new line character. So after iterating to this headers list, what we will be doing is we'll be simply giving print empty. The reason why we give an empty is, as I told you previously, Python will print a new line character at the end of everything it prints by default. So this will simply just be a new line character, and Python will go to the next line. And in the next line, we're going to print out the actual data for each column. So first, we have the first for loop over here, which is for I in range length of data. So length of data over here is basically the number of rows. So for I in range length of data means it's going to loop for every single row. So for each row, and in each row for each column in headers, that is for each row we are printing, for a particular column in that row, we're going to print out this particular line. So what does this mean? Data I of column. So in our headers list, the first value will be name. So for the first row and for the name column, we're going to print out whatever value is present in the list. And then we're going to print out 2 empty spaces to make it look legible. So once again, we're going to give end equal to empty quotes to make sure Python doesn't print a new line character. And then again over here, we're going to print a new line character, after which it's going to go to the next row and we're going to repeat the same, and it's going to go to the next row until we iterate through every single row in the table. The main function is same as the previous subtask. We have choice 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. For now, we have defined choice 1. So let's just run this code and see how it works once. So the file name is data.csv. Let me just give data.csv. And after it's loaded, let me ask it to print out. So you can see over here, it's print out the number of rows and the list of columns. And we have actually printed out the data present in the CSV file. So you can see it's legible and we can read it clearly. Let's just submit this and see if it passes all the test cases. So you can see both the test cases have been passed. Let's move on to the next subtask.